is Nathan Lewis, and I will be presented on tuberculosis before 1876. It is thought that tuberculosis originated about 150 million years ago, prehistory to the human era. The first time that it is suggested that it infected humans was nearly 3 million years ago on the eastern part of Africa. It is also estimated that it affected Egypt throughout most of its history and can be dated back to early Egyptian and Chilean life. The early Egyptians and Chileans were thought to have been plagued with the disease around 12,500 to 30,000 years ago. Tuberculosis eventually infected Greece around this same time frame, and it has been estimated that tuberculosis kills more than half the people that it infects at the time. This is mainly due to no treatment and little to no knowledge about the disease. It was often called a different name in each region. Some past names that have been used for it are consumption, scrofula, Pott's disease, and white plague. The most likely explanation as to why it spread was migration, trade routes, and also infected animals along the way. Over time, it has claimed many lives. It is estimated that throughout all of the known history of tuberculosis, it has claimed nearly 1 billion lives. This is just the people that have died from tuberculosis. Almost twice that number are estimated to have been infected with the disease. Tuberculosis mainly affects the bodily function of the lungs, making it very hard to treat at the time. Medical advances were not even a thing at the time. The best treatment option that they came up with during the period of the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, the royal touch, or simply being touched by the King of England or France, could cure you. This was known as the royal touch. The Renaissance is when tuberculosis actually became a large problem for humans and had began its epidemic. The first wave of deaths of tuberculosis was what brought most of the attention to it. In medieval Hungary, the Inquisition recorded the trials of pagans. A document from the 12th century recorded an explanation of the cause of the illness. The pagans said that tuberculosis was produced when a dog-shaped demon occupied the person's body and started to eat his lungs. When the possessed person coughed, then the demon was barking and getting ready to close his objective, which was to kill the victim. The Renaissance age is also when they actually started making medical advances towards preventing and treating the disease. Overall, the Renaissance was the first time tuberculosis was actually recognized for how deadly it can be. Medical advances further proceeded in the 17th century. Francis Sylvius was the first man to relate the different names for the disease together into one disease called consumption or tuberculosis. At first, the disease was blamed on sugar consumption and later resulted in talks about toxicity of the blood. After Francis related all the diseases together, he confirmed that tubercle, or the bacteria tubercle, was the cause of the disease. Treatment to the disease was now rest and good food. No more major advances were really made in tuberculosis until the late 18th century. These are my picture sources and my research sources.